As a material scientist, I realized very quickly that I really enjoy doing research. Like many other endeavors, research entails protracted periods of what Hopkins would call sheer plod, tedium, quite uninteresting. But those periods are punctuated by brief moments of intense frustration or intense excitement. One might have slaved for many months over a piece of apparatus and finally it's generating some data. Or a series of experiments may finally be yielding some novel results. Or even more compellingly, one might have looked at some established data and come to some special new insight. And interestingly, when that, on those rare occasions when that happens, it often seems so simple and so obvious that you immediately wonder why on earth no one had actually seen that before. And hot on the heels of that thought is, geez, I'd better rush to present or publish my results because research is a competition and not much in the way of kudos or grant funding comes to those who are second. What it took me significantly longer to realize, though, is that what really motivated me was when others took benefit from work that I had done. And thinking about that, benefit or utility equates to value. And I believed then, and I continue to believe now, that in order to push a technical, a scientific advance to optimal realization of value, an entrepreneurial approach is one of the best ways of doing that. So, having come to that, the beginnings of that realization, I then asked the question, am I a nascent entrepreneur, or more pertinently, is it possible for me to learn to become an entrepreneur? And that's really the theme that I wanted to present today. My argument is indeed entrepreneurship is largely a learnt discipline. A good place to start thinking about this is motivation. And I've spoken to a significant number of entrepreneurs over the years, some quite successful, some less so. But interestingly, it's quite rare to hear the response that the motivation for being an entrepreneur is to achieve very substantial financial gain. Now, we're all conversant with a small number of individuals who become immensely wealthy through their entrepreneurial efforts. But those are genuinely very rare exceptions, right? Most entrepreneurs don't hit the national stage or even the local stage. They don't achieve those measures of financial success. And there's actually three key reasons for that. If you as a company founder expect or hope to realize a financial benefit, three things have to happen. The first is that the company has to succeed. It has to achieve a growth trajectory that promises substantial commercial successes in the short, near, and longer term. Many companies don't do that. They achieve a stable level and maintain that. Secondly, though, there has to be an exit event through which one's ownership position translates into a financial return. So that could be an initial public offering, an IPO, or it could be an acquisition of your organization by another company. But the third factor is also important. At that point in time, you as the company founder need to still own a meaningful proportion of the company such that whatever proceeds there are, you can participate in. And it's actually quite unusual for all three of those things to happen at the same time. So entrepreneurs usually answer, and I would answer this the same way, that the prime motivation is to realize impact, to see a capability that you've envisaged or a technology or a scientific advance to which you've contributed move all the way through to broad-scale deployment and utility. What I'm showing here is one of the companies that I've had the good fortune to serve as a co-founder of. It's called HTE. It's based in Heidelberg, Germany. And together with 6 other colleagues in Germany. I served as a co-founder about 15 years ago. And this was a rare exception. HTE, it continues to do well business-wise. It was acquired a few years ago. And indeed, the sequence of financing rounds was such that those who were involved in the company actually did see some significant financial return. But a much more substantial motivation and a sense of satisfaction derives from the stature and the impact that the company continues to have today. It employs and provides a career path for over 300 scientists, engineers, and other staff. But importantly, they're making significant contributions to a key societal issue. They're working on the research and development of new heterogeneous catalysts that are of critical importance in addressing some of our energy, global warming, and other concerns in areas like energy materials, biomass conversion, environmental, petrochemical, and chemical catalysis. So there's a very substantial body of literature on entrepreneurs, entrepreneurship, and stories of company foundings and developments, both online and hard copy text. And if you pour through that, you'll see that opinion is somewhat divided between whether entrepreneurs are born or whether they're made. And my argument is very much on the right-hand side. I believe, as you'll see, that entrepreneurship is a learned discipline. And I've provided 2 diametrically opposed quotes here, one from Professor Shane, who argues and provides evidence for entrepreneurship being heritable, and then an earlier quote from the legendary Peter Drucker, who states that it has nothing at all to do with genes, it's all about discipline and application. Very good. So I like to, when I think about the attributes of an entrepreneur, I actually like to divide them into two sets. And the first of those is more the hard set of skills. And this includes things like legal, so corporate law, governance, contracts, purchasing, facilities, recruitment, human resources, regulatory issues, budgeting, finance, accounting, patents, all of those sort of things. And I don't think any of us would disagree that all of those subjects can very well be learnt and learnt in an academic setting. But if we look at the demographics of entrepreneurs, clearly there are other factors going on. What you see here is some data I've taken from the latest report of the Kauffman Foundation. Every year they do an analysis of entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship. And this report came out just about 4 weeks ago. And what you see, first of all, on the upper side, I included that, you do see a continuing increase in the number of women and females who are represented in entrepreneurship. And I should point out that what these data show is the number of new entrepreneurs who are coming into being. It's a measure of new organizations getting going within a defined period. But on the lower side, what you see is that the proportion of entrepreneurs who have college degrees versus just high school degrees is about equal. And that is not changing a lot with time. And furthermore, those who don't even have a high school graduate qualification are also very strongly represented. One point to make is that entrepreneurship is a field that is replete with people who are very able, very willing to help, and who expect very little in the way of return. So here in San Diego, on campus, there are many organizations that provide a vehicle for learning, exploring entrepreneurship. And also, similarly, off campus, there are lots of very experienced individuals in the region who are very willing to help aspiring entrepreneurs. And then there are organizations like Connect that have a cadre of more than 300 very experienced professionals who have expertise in all of the areas I've just listed, who will, on a volunteer, pro bono basis, put significant time into helping early phase companies get on the right track. So there's a lot of infrastructure to support those of you, if you're not already involved but are interested to become entrepreneurs. So the second group of attributes are more softer skills. And again, there's a wealth of literature out there articulating these various skills. Just to put something up here, I've taken a report from earlier this year in Business Insider that lists some 20 essential characteristics of entrepreneurs. And just to make it more digestible for you, I've actually reduced these to 2. So the first is business acumen. So really what this entails is the entrepreneur being able to visualize, to identify a new business opportunity, and that may be one that no one else at that point has yet seen. But beyond that, he or she or the team, when I say entrepreneur, I'm often more usually referring to not just an individual, but a small team. They also need to articulate a means of of realizing that business opportunity and a model for doing so, and we'll come back to that in a second. And the second set of key skills is the ability to engage others with you in achieving your vision, in making the company a practical, successful reality. And that includes that long list of people to whom we've just referred. But in thinking even about those soft skills, it's my view that we all have the capacity, should we put our minds to it, should we commit to developing a certain level of competency in any number of particular disciplines or activities. When I was an undergraduate in Oxford, a good friend of mine, Mike Tracy, was a very talented sportsman. He was adept at a number of sports, including squash. And he would play occasionally with a colleague, Roger Grimes, who apparently had no aptitude for the game at all. And after a few frustrating sessions, Mike said to Roger, "If you ever take a game from me, I'm going to buy you a case of champagne." Right? Well, Roger went away, and he read up on the game, and he practiced, and he played, and he practiced. And 2 years later, they had another match. Mike again won, and handily, but Roger did indeed win a game. And he earned, even if he never received, his champagne. Right? So my argument is that entrepreneurship is a bit like a sport, right? That you learn through practice. It requires the discipline of practice for you to develop and accumulate and express those skills. The challenge is that the opportunities you have to practice are actually very limited. How often do you see an advert anywhere for co-founder wanted? Now, until 2 days ago, I would have said never. But I was proved wrong 2 days ago when on LinkedIn there was a guy posting co-founder wanted. But that is unusual. That is unusual. So in reality, if you want to get experience in early phase company creation and startup and entrepreneurship, you really need to associate, know, and be known with people that are likely to be involved in starting new companies. And that's not easy to do. Or you do what most other entrepreneurs have done. You create your own enterprise. You create your own learning environment. And that's really how most entrepreneurs, it's not that they're born as entrepreneurs, but they have the compunction to create that learning experience, that endeavor that they can then pursue. And they, through painful mistakes, they develop and hone some of these skills. There's no reason, in my view, why this should be the case. And I'm convinced that even small company environments can provide opportunities for aspiring material scientists or aspiring entrepreneurs to learn some of the ropes. What I'm showing here, my current company, as per the introduction, is Tioga Research. And there's a little bit of a history to that I won't go into here. But what I'm showing is the number of interns that we've engaged over about an 8-9 year period as a function of year. But the really interesting thing is that if you look at the number of full-time employees that the company has had in each of those years, what you'll see in many years, we've had more interns working in the organization than we've actually had full-time employees. Now, of course, interns are working only for maybe a 3 or a 6-month period, whereas employees are working through the whole year. But the point is, I'm convinced that small and startup companies can, if they put their minds to it, provide a very interesting environment for entrepreneurs to begin to learn and develop the necessary skill set. How many self-effacing, modest entrepreneurs who are nervous in terms of their confidence of potential success do you meet? Not many, right? And so if you ask entrepreneurs as a group, on an individual basis, what are key elements of success? What are key success factors? Not surprisingly, you see that high up the list, aptitudes or capabilities of the team. But also importantly, all would, I think, put down luck as a key parameter. No matter how determined and exhaustive your planning is, you're never going to know all of the aspects that are going to impact your potential success or failure going forward. You can never know everything about the market dynamics, what the competition is doing, what other technologies and so on are coming forward. And so luck can play a critical role in determining ultimate success. But as Pasteur said, chance favors only the prepared mind, or in the case of the entrepreneur, if you want to catch a fish, you have to have your bait in the water. So talking about water, how many of you have tasted sea urchin, or uni in Japanese? So I can't see how many hands are up, but I'm guessing it's about a third, I'm guessing that. So of those that didn't put your hands up, how many of you dislike uni? Right? The point is that when we're particularly about foods, we have preconceptions about what an experience is going to be like. But until we've actually tried it, how do we know if we enjoy it? How do we know if that environment is the right thing for me personally to be involved in, to be fulfilled within, to get passionate about? Good. So, in my view, inside all of us, there's a prospective French speaker, there's a prospective squash player, and there's a prospective entrepreneur. Now, that doesn't mean to say that when we are studying French, we're going to find it easy to articulate, or that the words that finally come out of our mouth are not going to be flavored by an American or even a Scottish accent. And we may well not become a professional squash player. Right? But if we commit, we can achieve a level of proficiency. Right? In squash, if you realize that there's a particular shot you can't do, there's a ball deep in the rear left court that I can't get out effectively, you can't go and recruit someone else to make up for that deficiency. But as an entrepreneur, one of your opportunities and challenges is people engagement, making sure you've engaged the right collection of people to make sure you have a very effective team, right? And with respect to business acumen and skills, with practice, you can hone those. And so I believe firmly that even without good fortune, if you apply yourselves, you are capable of achieving lasting impact. Thank you.